Hello guys, and welcome back to Adjustments for Crusher. This is chapter 6.3, Crushing Agrofish, the Basics. Let's start by discussing the general strategy of an agrofish. First, we start with imposition. They have a high barrier frequency with big sizings. They don't fold to raises. When they check back and you check on the turn, they will delay c-bet a lot and keep attacking. They, generally speaking, like to attack weaknesses. Out of position, those type of players usually don't fold to steal. They free bet you a lot. They put you in a lot of tough spots. They don't fold to c-bets. They sometimes check raise you a lot. They donk a lot, and when you check back, they start BUPing empty you. Also, sometimes they barrel in free bet pots a lot. The thing is, with this type of players, as you can already hear from my explanation, it's kind of contradictory to our base strategy. And that's why against agrofish, we will have to adjust a lot. If I have to put it all in one word, usually they put in too much money with their weak hands. And that's also their biggest weakness. Let's go and look at the strategy. The pro of the strategy, like of an agrofish, is they will often win with a weak hand because they manage to push you out. Also, it can be hard to play against it, especially with your medium strong hands, because it's hard to know when to go to showdown and when to just give up when you face another triple barrel, for instance. Usually, they will get paid big with a good hand because they barrel so much, start to lose credibility, but when they finally hit a hand, they usually get paid off big time. Cons is they likely lose big pots in cases where they shouldn't. They should just give up earlier, but they decide to barrel down and you call down and then you win the big pots. Also, you don't really need nuts against those players to win big pots. So, how we will adapt against this super aggressive strategy? First of all, we will acknowledge that he will win small pots and we will focus ourselves on winning the big ones. I think most players get that. But the problem they have is that they will still get way too needy, way too passive, and get scared because opponent is putting so much pressure on them. While you focus on winning the big ones, just waiting to have nuts is not an option. Then your opponent will overrun you. That's what I meant with sometimes against those agrofish, you don't need nuts to win big pots. Generally speaking, your game plan will be calling down more. You will call down more, you will bet less, but you will call down looser than you're used to. If you wait for nuts and always fold on the river because your opponent is just betting one more time, this is not a winning strategy. You can fold your weak hands early, especially if your opponent has a high barrel frequency and you already know you're not going to get to the showdown anyways. You should avoid guessing spots, so you should get a range advantage as soon as possible. Keep in mind, the biggest weakness is that they put in too much money with weak hands. What did we learn in the beginning? When we fold the weakest hands, we are just giving up very, very small EV spots. Against very aggressive opponents, those very, very small EV hands become negative EV because they just put so much pressure on us. So it's very easy to just be tight pre-flop already, okay? What I said with fold weak hands early. Just fold those weak 10-15% more pre-flop. Yes, you can just open 65% against an agrofish. Sure, you will still make a lot more money than when you play 80-90% and then struggle with the weak hands later, okay? Especially because the agrofish usually also lose pre-flop. It's very important you get a good range advantage as soon as possible because on average you will have stronger hands. On average your opponent will put in too much money with weak hands, and that is where your edge comes into play. Play for more money with your range advantage. That's why you should actually open big, even though your opponent might free bet a lot. Seems counterintuitive, right? Like my opponent free bets me a lot, I open small because then when I fold to his free bet, then he wins a less amount. No, wrong. If your opponent is free betting you a lot, you should tighten up and increase your sizing so he's free betting you loose into a tight range. You don't have to overfold against the free bet anymore. Actually, you can over defend, meaning you can defend easily your 55-60% of your 65-60% opening range if your opponent is free betting you 30%. And you force him to put in even more money because because you 3x, he's not going to 3-bet you to, let's say, 7 or something, which you would do against the 2x. So he needs to make it 10 or something. So by definition, you already create a bigger pot in position with stronger hands. This is always good. Also, let him spaz out, okay? I've seen so many students just going like, okay, now finally I have a hand. Finally, it's time to make money. And they just bet like 85% on the flop. And the fish is like, okay, he didn't do anything for 100 hands. And now, of course, he has it. Like, I fold. And they're like, oh, every time I have it, I fold. How can I make money against this guy? And you're like, no, let him spaz out. Give him room, call down lighter, and raise your good hands late, okay? Like, you flop a set, it's not like, oh, okay, now I need to raise on the flop immediately. No, you know, he's barreling on the turn, he will barrel on the river, raise him on the river. Yes, of course, sometimes you give him the room to also suck you out, but more often than not, you will get rewarded for slow playing against those type of opponents. With reads and with good adaptions, those opponents are the most profitable ones, okay? I know they're hard to play, but trust me, I've made so much money out of them. It's crazy, guys. Like, because, you know, it's super swingy. Yes, it's super swingy. Like, you can easily lose or win 3 or 4 binds against such a guy in 100 hands. Like, if you play against Agrofish 80 hands and you run card that and you're down like 1 stack or something, just happens, okay? But you play 2 or 3 more hands and suddenly, you know, you win a big pot, you win another big pot, he goes to tilt because those people like to tilt a lot. And they start just jamming everything in, okay? Like, against those aggressive fish, especially the rebuying ones, when you play a lot of hands against them, those are usually the sessions, heads up, where I win like 5+ stacks against a single opponent. Because, first of all, for me, it's just a lot of fun because it's thrill, you know, you need to think a lot. They put you in a lot of tough spots, but I mean, that's for me the fun part actually about the game, you know? I mean, winning money is one thing, of course, but like winning money and having to actively think, getting like this statistication of like really beating your opponent, that's what it's all about for me. So I love playing those opponents. I can teach you how to beat them 100%. Okay, guys, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. We'll, of course, dive deeper into how to crush the Agrofish later on, but this is just the basic video. Keep crushing. See you in the next one.